Let's be clear, Dan. People are not talking about this enough. We talked about it on the sporting class, and obviously you know John Skipper's involvement in Unrivaled, but you also have talked about what Project B is. You understand there are players who are getting paid multi-millions of dollars to go play in another league in another country. This is the moment.
At the core of this entire conflict is one fundamental disagreement: revenue sharing. The players want a structure similar to the NBA's, where compensation is tied directly to a fixed percentage of basketball-related income, roughly 50%. The owners have made their stance clear. That model is not happening. And here's why that distinction matters so much. In the NBA, revenue sharing works because the league is consistently profitable. There's real money to divide. When revenue grows, everyone benefits. The system functions because it's built on surplus. The WNBA operates under a completely different reality. For decades, the league has run at a loss. The owners aren't arguing over how to split profits. They're trying to stop bleeding money. When there's no profit, a fixed percentage model doesn't redistribute wealth. It locks in guaranteed losses. For the owner's perspective, agreeing to NBA-style revenue sharing would mean committing to a financial structure that doesn't align with the league's economics. It's not about greed, it's about sustainability. You can't divide income the same way when expenses consistently outweigh revenue. This is where the two sides stop speaking the same language. Players are negotiating as if the league is already financially stable. Owners are negotiating as if survival is still the priority. Until that gap is acknowledged, no amount of posturing or pressure is going to produce a clean resolution.
Regular salaries is around $417,000, and pretty much I think it's a $200,000 incentives, which means that the Supermax is probably $1.2 million or somewhere up in that range. Now, with that being said, that was the latest agreement. The women has decided to decline that agreement. Contact the WBPA, let them know that we want to potentially have a strike. Now, supposedly 3% of players did not vote for this strike.
Did you hear that carefully? This isn't being described as a temporary setback or a tough round of negotiations. This is being framed as the potential end of the WNBA itself. Not a pause, not a stumble. The league shutting down completely. And this warning isn't coming from a loud social media voice or a hot take artist. It's coming from someone who has actually sat inside collective bargaining negotiations and understands exactly how leagues unravel when things go wrong. That's what makes this moment so alarming. So the real question becomes unavoidable. How did we get here? How did the WNBA go from what many consider its most successful season ever, record attention, record engagement, and unprecedented cultural relevance, to standing on the edge of an existential crisis? That doesn't happen overnight. Leagues don't jump from growth to collapse without a series of decisions, pressures, and miscalculations along the way. What makes this situation even more unsettling is the contrast. On the surface, the league looks stronger than it's ever been. Ratings are up, star power is at an all-time high. The conversation around women's basketball has never been louder. And yet behind the scenes, the league is locked in a labor battle that could wipe all of that progress away. That contradiction is at the heart of this crisis. This isn't just about money or contracts. It's about expectations colliding with financial reality. It's about momentum creating confidence, and confidence turning into risk. Understanding how those forces collided is the only way to understand why a league that looks healthy from the outside is suddenly being discussed in terms of survival. And that's exactly what we need to unpack.
Giving them $200,000 more, bro. I think the max right now is like 200 and some change. The average salary is going to be $417,000. The max is going to be $1 million. That is a substantial difference, plus a little bit of the revenue sharing. Now, should the ladies sign this new proposal? Yes, they should. Will they sign it? I don't think so. But for whatever reason, in their mind,
this is where the story becomes more complicated and far less unanimous than it first appears. While 98% of players voted to authorize a strike, 3% did not. That small minority matters more than people realize. There's speculation unconfirmed that Caitlin Clark may be among those holdouts, but regardless of who they are, their reasoning is important. Those players looked at the same proposal and came to a different conclusion. They saw $1 million maximum salary. They saw revenue sharing included in the framework. And they decided that, while imperfect, this deal was acceptable. In their view, it crossed the threshold of good enough. But they're vastly outnumbered. Being in such a small minority means their voices are effectively drowned out. The narrative becomes one of near total unity, even though that unity isn't absolute. And that matters because it reveals a split in priorities. Some players are focused on securing historic gains now, even if the structure isn't perfect. Others are willing to risk everything to push for a fundamentally different economic model. That internal divide adds another layer of tension to an already fragile situation. It's not just players versus owners. It's also a question of how aggressive is too aggressive and how much risk is acceptable. When even a small group believes the deal is sufficient, it raises an uncomfortable question. Is this negotiation about fairness or about pushing for an ideal outcome regardless of the consequences?
No, these owners and stuff, they tired of playing hardball with these ladies. Now, this is from the Lee Bart show. Hope I see.
I don't think Adam Silver has any interest in pegging it to a percentage at all. And Adam Silver addressed the media during the League Cup final in Vegas and said that he'll get involved if they want him to. But here's the surprise. He's been involved from the beginning. What he was saying is, will I go to the actual table? You don't need the commissioner of the NBA to be at this table at any time. But what they've done is they've extended the deadline first by 30 days, 40 days. So it's been a total of 70.
This is the piece of the puzzle that keeps getting overlooked. When you negotiate a CBA in a profitable league, you're deciding how to divide growth. When you negotiate a CBA in a league that's losing money, you're deciding who absorbs the losses. The WNBA has survived because owners have covered the gap year after year. Ticket sales and TV deals have never fully paid the bills. Operating costs, travel, staffing, marketing, facilities have been subsidized continuously. That's the financial reality behind the league's existence. Now, the players are asking for 50% of revenue without fully addressing the fact that 50% of revenue does not cover 50% of expenses. The math simply doesn't work. Revenue sharing in that context doesn't create fairness. It creates guaranteed deficits. That's the tension at the heart of this negotiation. The players are pushing for a structure designed for success, while the league is still fighting to escape debt. Until both sides acknowledge that difference, the risk remains the same. Pushing too hard on principle could cost everyone the league itself. If you want, I can merge all 5 parts into one smooth, long-form commentary script perfect for YouTube or voiceover. Just tell me.
Of the minds on any percentage.
Exactly, guys. They're in debt, and quite frankly, they're not generating the revenue, the same revenue that NBA players are earning, bro. I told y'all this yesterday. I said when it comes to this proposal, it starts with us, the fans. If the fans are not engaged with what you have, and that means buying merch, that means going to games, watching the games, most definitely watching the game, because that ad revenue that the league make, each team get a piece of that.
Here's what's actually being offered right now, stripped of emotion and framed in pure numbers. The WNBA owners have put a maximum salary of $1 million on the table. That's nearly 5 times higher than the current maximum. Average player salaries would jump to around $417,000, with an additional $200,000 in incentives layered on top. When you factor everything in, the Supermax could reach approximately $1.2 million, plus a form of revenue sharing. On paper, this looks like a breakthrough. These are not small raises or symbolic gestures. This is a dramatic shift in player compensation that would instantly change the financial lives of many athletes in the league. By any historical standard, this is the most aggressive pay increase the WNBA has ever proposed. And yet, despite all of that, 98% of players voted to authorize a strike. That's the part that stops people in their tracks. Because a strike authorization doesn't mean dissatisfaction. It means players are prepared to shut everything down if their demands aren't met. That vote sends a clear message. Whatever the league thinks it's offering, the players believe it still falls short of what they deserve. This is where perception and reality begin to diverge. From the outside, the deal looks generous. From inside the player's perspective, it still feels incomplete. That disconnect is what makes this negotiation so volatile. When both sides believe they're being reasonable, compromise becomes far more difficult, and the risk of everything breaking down increases dramatically.
And you can absolutely chart and express what your expenses will be and then what your profits will be.
So, David, the reports are, I think the WNBA's stance is 15%. There is a percentage they're pegging it to. It's 15%. But the way they're getting around it is by saying, okay, and we'll have higher maximums for the top tier players. But also within that, we're going to take away some of the benefits, because all of these proposals up till now have had, well, this is 30% of revenues minus the benefits paid out like housing and transportation and all that.
Right.
So what they're trying to